I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will do the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. You've probably heard throughout your life that anybody can grow up to be president. Well, this isn't necessarily true. It takes someone who is smart, tough, driven, open-minded, and filled with ideas. All of those are characteristics that our first 7 presidents had. The whole idea of having presidents started with our first president, George Washington. Born on April 13, 1743. When his parents passed, he inherited 5,000 acres of land from his father, who was a planter and surveyor, and a Randolph, a high social standing, from his mother. Jefferson was a man of few words. He relied on his pen to do the speaking for him. In fact, he was known as the silent member in Congress. He wrote the Declaration of Independence and a bill that established religious freedom. In 1796, he reluctantly ran for president and by default became vice president after coming within 3 votes. Right before Jefferson became president, there was a court case between Marbury and Madison. Before Jefferson became president, John Adams was in office. Adams had commissioned William Marbury and several other men as judges, not making Jefferson too happy. Jefferson told James Madison, his secretary, to block the appointments that would have them become judges. Marbury then sued, wanting his appointment unblocked. This court case created judicial review, which states that the court decides whether or not a law violates the Constitution. A couple of days later, Jefferson officially became president on March 4, 1801. In his inaugural address, Jefferson tried to reach out to the Federalists and Republicans. Jefferson believed that a large national government would threaten the liberty of the states. His philosophy was to reduce the power and size of the national government. His philosophy, close to the French philosophy, which said, "Let people do as they choose." France realized 2 things: that they had very little use for Louisiana and that they were going to need money for their war against Britain. The idea of selling land to the U.S. came to mind. Charles de Talleyrand informed the American diplomats that they were selling the entire territory of Louisiana. After negotiating, France ended up selling Louisiana for $15 million. The only thought that was crossing Jefferson's mind was whether or not the purchase was legal. France needed the deal to be finalized quickly before Napoleon changed his mind, which was when Jefferson realized that the government's ability to make treaties allowed him to accept the offer. The purchase was finalized in October 1803, making the size of the U.S. double. Jefferson realized that there was now a lot of unexplored land the U.S. had. He wanted to know all about the land, the animals, and the environment and the weather, so an idea came to his mind. He sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, accompanied by a group of people, to explore the westward lands. This was known as the Lewis and Clark Expedition. During their travels, they took notes on their surroundings and met Sacagawea, who helped them get around. It took 18 months to reach the Pacific Ocean. Before the expedition was finished, Jefferson had re-elections, which he won after having 4 successful years in office. During this time, the United States was at peace, but Great Britain and France were at war. This war was going to cause problems with trade between these 2 countries. The U.S. tried to remain neutral, but after a while, Great Britain and France lost patience with them, and both countries wanted to search and seize all ships that were trading with the opposing country. Great Britain was short on sailors, so they would stop American ships and force sailors who they believed deserted Britain back into the Navy. Thousands of people they forced into the Navy were American citizens and hadn't been part of the British Navy. This is known as imprisonment. After the British warship, the Leopard, attacked the American vessel Chesapeake in search of deserters, Americans became anti-British as they were in the Revolutionary War. Some wanted war against Britain, but Jefferson had a different approach. He created the Embargo Act, which banned all trade with foreign countries. This was mainly aimed towards Britain, but Jefferson didn't want Americans to trade with other countries using them as go-betweens. At first, Jefferson thought this was a good idea, believing that Britain needed them for agricultural products, but they were wrong. Great Britain just instead traded with Latin America. Jefferson realized that the Embargo Act would need some revising. The Embargo Act was repealed and was traded with the Non-Intercourse Act. The Non-Intercourse Act banned trade only with Great Britain and France. Like the Embargo Act, the Non-Intercourse Act failed. Jefferson's second term was coming to an end, and he didn't plan on running again. The next president became James Madison, winning against Charles Pickney by 75 votes.
James Madison, America's fourth president. Born on March 16, 1751, in Port Conway, Virginia, he was raised on his wealthy family's plantation, Montpelier, with his 7 younger siblings. His father, James Madison Sr., had married Nellie Conway, the daughter of a rich tobacco merchant. When Madison was young, he suffered from stress-induced seizures, something that plagued him throughout his life. He also lived during the French and Indian War, which threatened both his family and his home with Native American attacks. James Madison. In his teenage years, Madison attended the College of New Jersey, which is now Princeton University. While there, he studied and mastered Greek, Latin, Hebrew, and philosophy. After college in 1772, he looked into learning law, although he did not have a real passion for it. In 1774, he became a delegate for the Committee of Safety, which oversaw the local militia. This was his first step to becoming America's fourth president. Less than 2 years after that first step, America was in the midst of turmoil, with England and extremely close to war. In 1776, Madison took a seat at the famous Virginia Convention to devise the Declaration of Independence. After the Virginia Convention, he lost the spot on the new state assembly to another delegate, but despite the initial loss, in 1778 he won appointment to the Virginia Council of State, which helped greatly during the Revolutionary War. There he still continued to work with fellow politician and close friend Thomas Jefferson, who was the governor of Virginia at the time. Madison also served as Jefferson's Secretary of State. James Madison became president in 1809. During his presidency, he was faced with the issue of westward expansion. The colonies needed more space, and the repeal of the Proclamation of 1763 allowed for more possibilities. He fully supported Virginia's cession of its western claims, which ran all the way from Mississippi and included the Kentucky and Northwest Territories. Madison also faced another major problem: the War Hawks. The War Hawks were a group of Republican congressmen led by John C. Calhoun and Henry Clay, who demanded that America declare war against Great Britain, invade British Canada, and expel the Spanish from Florida. They also wanted the Western and Southwestern territories to drive out the Native Americans. The biggest event that occurred during Madison's presidency was the War of 1812. America was in the middle of turmoil with Britain due to previous events, such as in 1811, on October 12th, an anti-American man named Prevost became governor-in-chief and commander of forces in British North America. That same year, on November 4th, the U.S. War Congress pushed to wage war on Great Britain. The War Hawks had gained their favor. This catapulted America into the War of 1812, and on June 19th, President Madison finally declared war on Britain. One of the most historical battles in the War of 1812 was the Battle of Tippecanoe. U.S. General William Henry Harrison, also governor of the Indian Territory, drove his forces and attacked the men of Shawnee leader Tecumseh. At the end of the fight, the American militia had just barely won, suffering many deaths. Tecumseh fled to Canada in British protection. After the Battle of Tippecanoe, President Madison declared it a victory that will restore peace to the northwestern frontier. Another major event that happened while James Madison was president was the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner. While on a ship on September 14, 1814, a man named Francis Scott Key looked upon Fort McHenry. The Americans had won the battle that had just taken place and raised the American flag high above the fort. Inspired, Francis wrote a poem about our land of the free that later was made into our national anthem. The War of 1812 ended with the Treaty of Ghent, although neither America nor Britain admitted in the treaty to have gained anything from the war. President Madison and his wife, Dolly Madison, both showed great nationalism. In 1814, the famous fire at the White House took place. Dolly made a heroic feat and saved a very valuable portrait of George Washington. Also, on February 17, 1815, the Madisons hosted a celebration at their home to commemorate peace for both political parties, those who supported the War of 1812 and those who didn't alike. James Madison's presidency ended in 1817, and he died on June 28, 1836. He is remembered as the wise and just fourth president of the United States.